Today we're going to be checking out Europe ruined America for this guy.
What can that mean? I wonder what that will mean.
We're about to find out. Let's jump into it. Here we go.
For pineapple when I was a kid. I thought it was bland in the grand scheme of fruits. But then I had a pineapple in Costa Rica where they actually grow it, and my lord, nothing is better. Now the
That is true. That is true. You go to the tropical countries, the fruit is sweeter.
Yeah, definitely very
you
sweet.
see lopped onto a hotel breakfast buffet practically makes me gag. And that, sports fans, is what living in Europe for 10 years did to America for me. Let me explain. If you're new here, hey, thanks for being here. Swell of ya. My name is Joe Bauer, an American immigrant who's been living in Europe for the past decade and wandering around the world even longer, trying to close the gap between the story we're told and what's actually out there. In this video, I'm going to share how living in Europe has ruined the United States for me.
All right.
Wow. Weird connection I've seen here is that people who travel a lot tend to, at least Americans who travel a lot, tend to look a little bit more unfavorably towards the U.S.
You think the propaganda machine doesn't work once you get out of the U.S. bubble and see things with your own eyes?
I think so.
I mean, the media in the United States too, it's just like very America-centric. They basically tell you on the media, which is supposed to be objective, that, oh man, everywhere else is worse than America. It's safest here.
Growing up in the US, particularly the so-called heartland of America, the constant thumping of
Where is
best
that?
country
I'm not sure.
ever, either
He's saying Europe and Heartland. That's like a very broad areas. I don't know what to think.
verbally or subconsciously by our politicians and media, leave you assuming that the sentiment must be true. It's ingrained in you before you can even conceive of life beyond US borders. So that's what I assumed. The US must be the best country because, you know, it just is. The tides go in and out, the earth rotates around the sun, and the Cleveland Browns will find new and unique ways to lose games. It's just another law of the universe. Now, to be fair, you don't know what you don't know. We're not generally taught that many people who live outside of the United States are happy with where they live. The general narrative we get is that everyone wants to come to the US. We saw that presumptuous bravado play out with the latest Greenland nonsense when Ted Cruz claimed Greenlanders would say, hell yeah, to becoming American citizens. Except they don't want to.
The politicians say it and people believe it. I mean, this is on what? Fox News? Of course it's on Fox News. I'm sure this guy was like, yeah, that's true, man.
I agree with you.
And Fox News is the most popular news channel in the country, by the way.
And so, I mean, that just shows you that the American defaultism is even in the highest up of places. I mean, obviously, you can just look at Truth Social and find that, but it's crazy.
I mean, and then the CNNs and the MSNBCs and the CBSs, they're supposed to be like the anti-Fox News, right? But they all just say the same type of stuff, that America's the best.
Say, hell yeah, to becoming American citizens. Except they don't want to become American citizens, which is something I'll dive deeper into my next video covering my recent week traveling around Greenland. So, you know, stay tuned. It wasn't until I started traveling the world, ironically thanks to the privilege of an American passport, that I started to realize both that best country is highly subjective and that other countries inarguably do certain things better. In some cases, much better.
Connectivity.
I remember traveling to Switzerland for the first time about 12 years ago, crisscrossing the country by bike and train, something you simply cannot do in the US. Or, for the person inevitably getting ready to yell in the comments, Switzerland is the size of a small US state. You can't do it in a small US state either.
Yeah.
Nope.
There's a bit from How I Met Your Mother, one of the few that haven't aged horribly, where glass shatters every time someone realizes something for the first time.
You're always correcting people.
That's absolutely right.
That trip to Switzerland was the first of many glass-shattering moments from Europe that's ruined America for me. Moving here and traveling even more has only made it worse. Now, when I lived in Dusseldorf,
Why is he always running in these clips?
He's quite active, I
I
guess.
could easily and safely cycle to the Netherlands, take regional trains to villages in the countryside, ride a high-speed train to France or Belgium, a night train to Vienna, or transfer in Munich to slip south to Austria or Italy. Even from Berlin, I can easily get to Denmark, Czechia, Hungary, or within about an hour on the train, Poland. This isn't just great for travel, it's great for flexibility when working remotely. Just last week, I took the train from Copenhagen to Berlin after my week in Greenland because my flight was canceled. In the US, I'd be absolutely screwed. I'd have to rent a car and basically lose a workday driving. But here, I could just hop on the train. It was about an 8.5 hour journey. Basically,
It is pretty crazy when it's like the most normal thing when going to the airport in the US that someone you know will just drop you off. They'll drive you to the airport and drop you off. Otherwise, you can pay for extremely expensive parking before you fly, but that's like just a normal thing. It's not normal to use the train to connect into the airport.
And somewhere where we're from, like Minnesota is where we're from, kind of like in the northern middle part of the country, you can't get anywhere unless you want to drive 15 hours or you're just going to fly.
Yeah.
That's your only option to get anywhere that's not a cornfield, basically.
workday on the train, which, as a side note, I'm wildly productive on a train. I think I wrapped up like 3 articles I had due for editors, and it really would have screwed up my week if I lost that time. Not to mention, spending that amount of time in a car would push me to the brink of insanity. After having that kind of ease of connectivity for the past decade, I simply can't look at the US the same way again. Because all I see when I look at a map are the ghosts of train lines that used to exist and think of the decades of missed opportunities to make things better. Case in point.
That's the thing with the US too, is a lot of times you look back at like all the projects and things that were happening in the 20th century. And it's like they had the right idea and they built the big highway systems. They had trains. They had higher tax rates for billionaires. And then Ronald Reagan came in and everything just whoop flipped. And now everything's so much worse.
It's insane. Imagine what a different situation we would be in if that didn't happen.
The United States is the richest country in the world, but doesn't have any of these things that all these European countries have.
We're planning a big trip around the western United States to check out some national parks, most likely connecting Las Vegas, Salt Lake City, Boise, and Portland. They're the largest cities in their respective states, each about 4 to 6 hours of driving apart. My European eyes can't help but expect there to be trains connecting these places. Here, I can take a high-speed train from Berlin to Munich, the same distance as Salt Lake City to Boise, in about 4 hours, with Wi-Fi while working. What transit options that do exist in the western region of the US are multiple buses at just about double the driving time. Hardly the stuff of the best country on earth.
I mean, I can't even imagine what the bus ride would be like doing that. That's something I've never considered doing in the US, a bus ride like that.
The US is, financially speaking, a wealthy country. Now, rather than using $200 billion to fund an illegal war, it could give a tiny fraction of that amount.
Don't know if you guys saw that, but Trump was making the argument that we can't fund Medicare or whatever. What are the other things? Medicare, healthcare, maybe like
I think you said childcare.
Stuff like that, because it's too expensive. But give me $200 billion so we can keep bombing little girls in Iran. Please.
Yeah, wow. And he was criticizing that Iran doesn't take care of their citizens. And then, ironically, says that stuff.
To improving the lives of everyday Americans by, I don't know, as just one example, improving transportation alternatives. But what it can't do is something that's inherent to the very fabric of Europe, and that is hold together a mosaic of different languages, cultures, and histories. One of my absolute favorite things about living in and traveling around Europe is the linguistic and cultural diversity of the continent. When I'm doing those cycling trips from Dusseldorf or the international train trips out of Berlin, I'm diving into a place with a completely different language, culture, and history. That was another glass-shattering moment for me. Just how much I value this kind of accessible diversity. Now, don't get me wrong, the US is home to loads of unique and interesting cultures. The Midwest is different than the Northeast, which is different than the Southeast, and so on. But the degree of those differences is a fraction of what you experience living in Europe. Going from my hometown of Cleveland to, let's say, next door Pennsylvania just isn't as thrilling as
I'm curious, given if the US survives for another 1,000 years, let's say, if that diversity will become more apparent, like how Europe obviously is. Those cultures have been around for a long time.
It's possible. It really depends on how much it goes from a states' rights thing to a federal rights thing. Like if everything keeps going more states' direction, then I imagine it would split more like that.
Honestly, I wonder what like the world is going to look like in 1,000 years, since everyone's so interconnected now. There might just be like a world culture.
And then like lots of smaller independent places, but yeah, that's interesting.
I don't know.
To Poland from Berlin, and it simply never will be. No offense to Pennsylvania. I love Pittsburgh, the Allegheny River, the Allegheny Mountains. It's all beautiful stuff, so please don't attack me with one of those massive Permanente Brothers sandwiches. My love and now expectation for that kind of diversity is 100% Europe's fault, and there's nothing the US can do about that. Unless, and I'm just spitballing here, someone invents a time machine, goes back in time, stops Native American genocide. Those civilizations continue to grow. They allow a reasonable amount of European immigration, but, with limits, of course, because you can't just have them pouring
They probably still would have died from smallpox.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
across Cherokee, Navajo, or Choctaw borders, taking their jobs, and then you're left with the same kind of cultural mosaic that we have today in Europe. And instead of, dances with wolves, we'd have, I don't know, dances with clogs or something. If only. In the US, unemployment is viewed shamefully. It's one of the sins spelled out on Mel Brooks' third tablet that his Moses dropped. There's little empathy for folks who, for one reason or another, can't find work. Boomers especially are fond of shaking their head, muttering, "Why don't you just get a job?" As if they're just being handed out by the job fairy.
Yeah, get a job. Oh, get a job? Yeah. Just get a job? Why don't I strap on my job helmet and squeeze down into a job cannon and fire off into job land where jobs grow on jobbies?
In Germany, and I imagine most of the European Union,
It is
unemployment
interesting about how shamefully unemployment is looked at. And I don't know if other countries do this, but one of the biggest talking points in American politics is how many jobs a president created. I haven't seen this in any other country, but it's literally every time it's always like talking point. Oh, they created 100,000 new jobs in this sector, or something like that. Like it's always about job creation.
And then a lot of times it gets skewed because, like, I think last month there was a creation of 130,000 jobs or whatever, but they also left out the fact that there was like a huge portion of that was a bunch of nurses that were on strike that decided to start working again. 'Cause it's those jobs numbers just have to be all just propaganda for the administration,
And
right?
ironically, I think Trump has been like one of the worst presidents in U.S. history for that, I think, too.
It's been bad. He said he's gonna create jobs, many jobs, most in history, and he's been losing them.
His tariff thing ended up actually being bad for a lot of the jobs.
What? Who would have thought?
Oh, wow. Who would have thought the tourism sector would crumble?
differently. We have higher taxes, yes, but that helps fund the social safety net that gives recently unemployed folks financial breathing room if they lose their job. Or it's not entirely uncommon for someone to voluntarily leave their job just to make some time for themselves, maybe travel, or do something else that doesn't revolve around
Unheard
work.
of.
That is called being lazy.
Get a job, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. If you don't have a house by the time you're 22, what are you even doing?
Yeah, and you should be in $900,000 of debt by that point.
The baby boomer had a house when they were 19. Why don't
Exactly.
you?
Yeah, and they had 4 kids already, too.
Why don't you?
While collecting some form of unemployment. The American mind couldn't imagine such a thing. I couldn't have imagined it myself until I lived here. But in Germany, unemployment is viewed as a kind of insurance policy that you recoup whenever you need it. It's your money
Makes
you're
sense.
taking back. But in the US, a social safety net is the kind of thing for commies and their commie polyamorous thruples. In a country where many people are living paycheck to paycheck, leaving your job for any number of reasons is seen as too risky. So you might find yourself trapped as opposed to feeling free to explore other opportunities or maybe even starting your own business. Glass
Not to mention your healthcare is probably wrapped up in your job too. So if you quit your job because you want some freedom for a little bit, you want to go on a vacation, you don't have healthcare anymore.
It ends up turning into more of a corporate ladder structure instead, because you can't leave, so you just try to climb the ladder in whatever job you're in, and that's super slow.
Most likely the ladder is only so high for you. If you don't come from the upper management, or you don't come from the family a lot of times,
Yeah.
the son will just become like the Trump company.
Oh.
officially
There's probably somebody that was working at the Trump company for 20 years now,
Yeah.
but Don Jr. Swooped in there.
None of this is to say that Europe is better than the United States. That kind of thinking is entirely subjective, whether you truly believe the United States is the greatest country on earth, or you wouldn't step foot there if someone paid you. But these glass-shattering moments that living in and traveling around Europe has given me has changed how I see the United States as it relates to the rest of the world. It gave me perspective. It showed me that the American way isn't the best way, it's just one way. It also sucks, to be honest, because as an American, you feel like someone lied to you when the glass shatters, and you realize that other places are doing certain things better, or at least more effectively. But because so many of our leaders believe that America is the best country on earth, they refuse to learn from other places. Don't
Do
get
they
me
believe it, or are they just saying it?
Are they saying that so that they can make more posts online to increase certain stock prices that they invested in?
me wrong, I don't mind a little confident bravado every now and then. It works for some of the best athletes out there. But you gotta back that shit up. Imagine if after Muhammad Ali said he was the greatest, he went out there and got pummeled by a 5th grader with weak bones. Perhaps most frustrating of all, US leadership by and large would seem more likely to just give me a Men in Black brain wipe rather than try and make itself better.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you will, look right here.
The US is the greatest country on earth. Kid Rock is a national icon.
Kid
Mexican is
Rock.
better than Mexican. So yes, Europe ruined America for me. Living and traveling around here showed me that the US isn't the best in many respects, certainly in ways I care about. I can't unsee that, and I certainly can't imagine life without it. But Europe isn't the only region dropping life lessons on my lap. In this video, I share 8 places from around the world that completely changed my American.
Don't worry, I've spent a few months in Europe, and I've had the same experience as this guy, and that's only from a few months, not 10 years.
Yeah, and he's like actually gotten to live there, which I'm sure you experience more of the social programs if you're living there. I would assume, at least if he's a citizen of some country or something like that.
I was just in Australia for 20 days, and I was like, wow, this is so much better than the US.
Yeah, and it's crazy because you don't even get to experience like that, like all the policies that we think are so great. I guess you get to see it in the cities and how people live, but you don't get to experience it yourself necessarily, and we still think they're just so much better.
You get to see how it is just like visually, and then you get to remember, oh wait, they also have these things that we don't have in the US.
Yeah.
And it looks like this.
The US could have been like this if they just, were a little bit nicer to the people, if the government worked for the people.
That's not what it's about. It's for the lobbyists.
Yeah, money, money, money.
It's free speech as long as you got the cash, baby. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.